Creative, Julian Phillips, Vallejo, California, June 26, 2018. The Cobalt Migration, Chapter 4. With co-author Tom Luong. Enjoy Tom's other new sci-fi novels, Mars Outpost, Surviving Tharsis Mondes, and The Jupiter Plan, Anarchy at Amalthea, now on Amazon.com. The Cobalt Migration is the story of a special family of military and space program pilots and interplanet explorers, who are secretly recruited and trained over several generations to be among Earth's very first residents of newly colonized homes on Mars and the moons of Jupiter. As if a 100-year migration of souls from one world to another, hidden in the deep blue cobalt darkness of space and also by the secrecy of their goals and sources, how can the family stay human, on these new and very different worlds? Chapter 4. So since when was life anything other than strange and bizarre, Mellu? He asked his spouse, Mellu Tanaka. Sometimes they would speak Japanese, Mellu's native language. When he spoke English, Mellu was the enthusiastic student, paying close attention to learn this essential skill. How could they finally settle in America, if she knew no English? Her marriage to Philip Corso, a military man, did not by accident only serve to make Mellu's transit to New Mexico much easier. But since when is love only an accidental event? Since lunch this afternoon, Philip, she answered him. The food, I think, is not right for my stomach. Vietnamese, Thai, Filipino, Indonesia, they all have wonderful food, he said, but much is strange. Stay away from the blowfish, I'd say. She smiled, but it was not a time for laughter. New Mexico and the shores of the United States may as well have been light years distant. It was by then just 7 months after the August 1945 atomic bombs at Hiroshima and Nagasaki. Career military officer Philip S. Corso, in the Army Corps, worked for the Office of Special Investigation, OSI. The horrors of World War II now are suddenly fading, with a baby on the way, and with secrets to conceal. Officer Corso and his new wife had found refuge first in Thailand, then in Jakarta, then in Australia. As U.S. military, it was not uncommon for the men to take wives from the regions where they were stationed. The couple were enjoying their 5th year together, and now the baby, and this as the whole world seemed to have gone insane all around them, with no real certainty they would even survive. Fallout from the nuclear bombs included so much more than merely poisoned air and earth and water. More perhaps than the world would ever really know. At the wheel of a long bed truck, 6-cylinder gas engine grinding along. The engine whined, the gears were big enough to anchor a small fishing boat. The couple made their way ahead from within this utility vehicle, used then by the Australian authorities and military. The cabin passenger area was cluttered with their personal goods, bags, luggage items, maps, coats and jackets, a radio, and a handgun in her holster. Whoa! Slow down, Philip! Mellu cried out, as the mostly dirt and asphalt road turned down a graded 45-degree slope. Dust was rising behind the dark gray and black and knobby tires, and the long bed behind the cab clinked and rattled. Philip grabbed a gear and slowed the pace. The road connected their New Zealand location with a small airport near the water. A U.S. Air Force Douglas C-47 Skytrain twin prop would fly Mellu and Philip to Hawaii, and then to Los Angeles, the following day. In 6 months since the time of the nuclear fires over her homeland in Japan, the entire world was changing dramatically for Mellu and many millions of others, caught up in a war they never wanted or understood. Soon, World War II would be over, forever in the past. But even there, beneath the watercolor grey and puffy white clouds over New Zealand, every person was concerned with radioactive pollution, a well-known danger of such weapons. The road went on, winding back and forth in an area with lower standing hills and small agricultural areas, many trees and blue sky above, many farms and townships, and beyond the glowing horizon, north and west. Was there another bomb? Did the troops abandon Guantanamo? What had become of the Europeans? And what has become of my own father? Mellu wondered sadly. But wait. What had become of me? It was nighttime and I was in bed, dreaming, something, just dreaming, and then... Wait. Where was I 6 months ago? I was selling flowers to the old woman in the market in my home at Torinoki. The bird tree, and the long bed utility truck reached the bottom of the 45-degree slope, where the rains would send small floods across the road, sometimes filling the dip with sand and dirt. Bang! The worn-out shocks on the rear and transmission differential gear and long steel shaft drive of the military truck bashed onto the hard asphalt, bottoming out with a loud noise. Nearby birds and a small rodent or two in the bushes and trees fled away from the sound and clatter. "Don't worry," Philip said. "I've got it." "This road is awful, Philip." Mellu knew little about Philip. He was an intense, very serious military man, a lieutenant colonel with the U.S. Army. His career achievements eventually included posts as battalion commander of European Air Defense, Chief Foreign Technology Division of the United States Department of Defense, Staff Officer in the Plans Division OCRD Washington, D.C., Fort Riley, Intelligence Staff Officer Plans and Estimate Branch GHQ Far East Command Chief, Special Project Branch G2 Section of the HQ 8000th AU Command. But who was he really? "He is my husband, I am his wife, I am having his baby." "He is my husband, I am his wife, I am having his baby." Mellu was distant, hanging to the side of her seat by a cowhide strap with tin buttons drilled to the bulkhead of the truck cab. "Well, you're my wife now, Mellu. I'm the husband, and you're having my baby. Do you think I'm missing the only flight out of New Zealand for the next 6 weeks? While we all boil under a cloud of radioactive fallout?" Far ahead, others were waiting for the Douglas C-47 Skytrain from Sydney, Australia. Mellu understood, if anyone knew the long-distant flights out of the shadow of Hiroshima, it was Philip. In many ways it was a miracle they had even gotten that far. But in her mind, Mellu was puzzled. The reason was that just weeks before the bombing of Hiroshima, and then just weeks afterwards, and then months in an underground base bunker on an island somewhere she never even heard of. The food was clean and nice to eat, and the people all were very busy, but she must always do as she was told, and she could not leave, or come and go as she might on holiday. And she must never ask questions. But she did anyway. One night, she saw a man who was cleaning up in the kitchen. It was all very small and not much ever going on, they were waiting for an order from the US military. So she asked the man, "Is the war over? Is the war over?" She said, both in English and her native Japanese. The man understood her Japanese better. "I mean, is it really over, like they said? What happened?" The man was much older than her, and used a white smock as he cleaned up everything from their food and meals, tin or steel dishes, trash. He tried to explain that he could not answer her directly, because he really did not know. "Both the two cities were burned up?" "Yes," he said. "And all those people?" This is what the reports tell us, what I heard. So the war is over? Japan surrendered within a week, dear child. Now do not speak of it any longer. Philip and his own servants or officers, had brought Mellu to the underground base bunker, even weeks previously, or months. Mellu had no idea where she was, or what was ahead. The base had a level on the surface and a level underneath. They ate cookies and crackers, with coffee and milk, and noodles and rice, with some milk, and sometimes some soup. It was clean and nice, but she felt like a prisoner. The man held out his hand. "I'm Daniel Tabak, General Services." Mellu smiled. It wasn't until that moment that she realized that he was black, an African ethnic man. "I am Mellu." "I know who you are, little princess," he said. "Colonel Corso, so that's who?" "Whoever he says you are." "Daniel, sir," she said. "What place is this? Where are we?" "It's called Macandias. It is a small island off Guantanamo. This is a big secret, but now, you understand, things have changed." Today is March 6, 1946. The surrender was last September, it's official, and the same in Europe, they tell me. "Where have you been hiding, Mellu?" "I don't know." Just then two soldiers entered, moving into the hallway on some errand. The man named Daniel went then about his business, which was to empty trash buckets, and wash down a floor area with a mop. The Douglas C-47 Skytrain from Sydney, Australia, was a mid-sized passenger or transport cargo long-haul aircraft. The plane had two large engines on either wing, and was thought to be reliable for long distances. Even from miles away, the drone of the big rotary piston engines was unmistakable. In those days, the sound was sometimes feared, indicating a bomber, a strafing run. Here she comes. Mellu understood, if anyone knew the long-distant flights out of the shadow of Hiroshima, it was Philip. In many ways it was a miracle they had even gotten that far. In many ways it was a miracle they had even gotten that far. In many ways it was a miracle they had gone that far. It was a miracle in many ways. Maybe because Mellu's organic nervous system memory included a blank and sometimes painful area, in which missing time, in her own past, was somehow filled with a lurking nightmare. From just before the bomb. Just before the most insane mass death of human beings. And then just after, by a few weeks, or, was it a few months? "Philip," she said again. "There, to the right, see the little flag?" "I see it," Philip answered. The truck slowed and slowed, as he backed off the clutch, and made the turn. His own maps agreed, as well as the battalion radio he monitored. It was the landing strip the Army maintained there for concealed missions. As an intelligence officer for the Army, under the terms of the September 1945 surrender, he was free to travel back to the United States. Mellu Tanaka was also approved. But Colonel Corso also knew things were not as they seemed. The Skytrain grew closer over the skies above them, as if to make a 5-mile turn and then land. The truck fit neatly beneath a business sign for a storage service, Macandia's warehouses and storage. Other vehicles were nearby, and he already knew, the other passengers on the air journey to Hawaii included 2 officers, their 2 wives, and 1 adult-age daughter. "Don't worry, Mellu. Not now. Don't worry, now, I mean. We will be fine, this is a very dependable aircraft. I only take this one whenever I must travel by air. The Douglas C-47. Here she comes." Over there. See? Mellu squinted, gazing into the blue sky and clouds. The setting sun far to the east may have been a nuclear explosion of its own, she thought sadly. So beautiful, so terrible. Then it started to come to mind, that as a Japanese national, on this travel to America, she would always be different than everyone else, and always have to explain about her past and her loyalties. The war was over, but yet it was not. By then they had their bags and small luggage items. The airfield was at least a mile long, and was not very old, probably built just for the war years. Everything needed was present: fuel tanks, machine shops, soldiers too. "I'm not worried about the airplane, Philip," she told him, as they waited. "What worries is that I don't know who you are, or how I got here, or where we are going. I don't know who you are, Colonel Corso. I don't even know who I am." Philip seemed angry for a moment. But not with her. "Now you listen to me, Mellu. Whatever else they tell you, and whatever else you believe, I have chosen to care for you, and the baby. It's my duty. I understand I may not be the actual father of the child. And no, Mellu, I do not for 1 minute seriously believe the child inside your tummy is gestated of the seminal seed of some sort of extraterrestrial from another planet or another world. Do you understand? And even if you feel that way, or the President of the United States feels that way, I will still care for both you, and any child you may carry." In the sky above them both the C-47 Douglas Skytrain was starting his descent and landing run. The wind was in his favor, flapping in the windsock, and a small military flag, half a mile down, rows and rows of trees. The airplane's engines whined and shifted pitch. The two military officers, and their 2 wives and 1 daughter, started to get uneasy. A guard was getting things ready to load passengers. "Thank you, Mr. Corso," Mellu said. "We have doctors in America who will work every day with you, Mellu, to find those lost memories so you can feel better, about the missing time. And about the baby. What if it's a monster, Philip? You will speak of it no more. Here now. Get you ready, just an hour from now we'll be on board."